So good morning, good day, good evening. And as an introduction to the meditation today, I want to mention a very famous or significant Buddhist quote from the time of the Buddha that goes something like, "Nothing whatsoever is worth clinging to." And on one hand, it can seem like a little bit of a bad news, the idea of you're not supposed to cling, and maybe some of the things we cling to seem very important. But there's two reasons for the ending of clinging, not clinging. One is so we don't experience the suffering that comes with clinging. And the other is that we make room for the wonderful, significant, strong, beneficial, beautiful emotions, states of mind, qualities of mind that can flow more freely when there is no clinging. Clinging is kind of a block to the flow of the good, wholesome qualities within us. And so to remove that blockage is a fantastic thing. It helps us to grow, to thrive. It's onward leading. It allows some of the seemingly natural ways in which humans develop to point of thriving to unfold more freely. And so in terms of emotions, we can certainly cling to emotions. Some emotions arise with clinging or because of clinging. But one way of looking at this, and this is the point of the meditation, is that there are emotions which are a little bit more closing down, a little bit more limiting ourselves, and there are a way of being that opens more fully. And this opening, clinging closes and liberation opens. And to have that movement, whether it's to open up the emotions that involve closing down, or it involves opening up any ways in which emotions, even ones that are difficult, open up so that they have some freedom to course through us, to allow and see what inner growth, development, and freedom comes. I like the idea that there's a biological movement towards freedom. And our job is to get out of the way, and that mindfulness supports that by helping us see where we close and where we open. So to take as a relaxed, open posture for the meditation, breathing in deeply and exhaling fully. And this breathing in deeply can be felt as an opening of what is closed, an expanding of the torso, the chest, the body, to symbolically make room, lots of room within for our emotional life. And to exhale a little longer than usual is a way of relaxing around whatever we're feeling, however we are. I sometimes think of the exhale as being equivalent to saying, "It's okay." And then letting your breathing return to normal. And if you could, open up widely to whatever emotions are within you. What do you think might come flowing? What do you think might come through? And whatever it might be, on the exhales to settle. It's okay. And on the inhale to open wide, as if you're making lots of room for how you are. On the exhale, it's okay. And otherwise, letting your thoughts become quieter, as if the thinking mind is reassured and is reminded it doesn't have to work so much. And this opening up to what's within and letting it flow. Remember as you do so, the meditation posture is meant to offer you grounding and stability. So to be grounded in the present moment, in your body, allowing whatever's there to flow, to express itself, to be felt as embodied experience. Letting go of stories and judgments and commentary, predictions and meaning to what's happening. The simplicity of opening the body so what's within is given freedom. A freedom within the quiet of sitting here. to allow for an opening to experience has benefits. It might be possible to be aware that in the opening, the openness to experience, giving room to experience, there are some wholesome qualities of mind that are available, wholesome qualities of heart. In opening up to experience, there is awareness. It's almost as if opening makes more awareness. So things can arise in awareness, in mindfulness. In the opening, there can be clarity or interest, even curiosity, not to lean towards anything, but to let it register more clearly. This is what it is. Within the feeling or sense of being open or opening, there is some kind of nice energy or effort. In the opening, there is some quality of joy or well-being, perhaps represented by the word yes. Open and yes, yes to this. And in the opening up rather than closing down, there might also be some quality of calm or tranquility, a quietude, as if opening up creates a space which is quiet, a spaciousness with it which is calm. And within the opening, there might be a concentration or a stability or a unification of being centered and holding all things. And if the opening is not just opening up, but also allowing for the opening for a little bit, that open awareness can have qualities of equanimity, of non-reactivity, non-agitation with what is happening. And part of the value of open awareness is to allow these good qualities to also flow through us, to recognize them and allow them to fill us. Letting go of thoughts can be equivalent to opening up awareness. Letting go into an openness, a quiet openness, to some of the wholesome qualities that live within you. Wholesome qualities that might grow if you do a little half smile with the corner of your lips, allowing yourself to feel the pleasure and delight that allows what's wholesome to show itself a little bit more. Coming to the end of this sitting, to see if you can touch into whatever wholesomeness there is within you, whatever place within where there might reside some goodness, some capacity for goodwill, and care, generosity. Some place where there's maybe some degree of happiness or well-being. And imagine that your goodness, your wholesome qualities, as fleeting as they might be, that you can touch others with them. Others can feel touched. Kind of like the Midas touch. We touch the world with our kindness, our goodness, our care, our love. When we're not closed down, preoccupied, but have learned to open up and trust, be brave enough to let what is good within us come forth out into the world. May it be that in direct and indirect ways, that the wholesomeness, the goodness, the love, the kindness, generosity that you're capable of, may it be a bit like Midas's touch, that directly or indirectly you bring that to bless the world, to benefit the world. May it be that whatever goodness that comes from this practice, may you bring it into the world, to those near and those far, so that all beings may benefit from your practice. May all beings be happy. May all beings be really happy. May all beings be peaceful. And may all beings discover how to live without being closed down from clinging. May they discover the joy of opening up to freedom. May all beings be free. So we come to the fifth and last talk on mindfulness of emotions. And I like to think that all our emotions should be respected, and that one of the great places to do that is in meditation, where we don't act on the emotion or act out of them, but we allow them the freedom to move through us with mindfulness, with this very special awareness that makes room for things, but doesn't pick things up or doesn't react to things, or doesn't get caught up in the story side of emotions. The story, the predictions, the interpretations, the meaning making, the conversations that kind of keep the pot stirred up, keep the motion of emotion keep going and flowing. Apparently, and maybe I said this, that in the original French word that from which emotion comes from, apparently means to stir up. And in Buddhism, we talk about Buddha talked about whirlpools, and the whirlpools of life is a suffering. But the current of the river that flows freely and doesn't get swept up in a whirlpool, that's where freedom is, the current and the flow. So the fourth foundation, so what I'm saying this week is that there are 4 different perspectives or frames of references with which we can look at emotions. And the very act of choosing to use these 4 different perspectives to look at what we call an emotion, whatever that is a movement of freedom, is a movement of stepping away and not being enmeshed or caught in the emotion, and stepping away, take a look at it. Oh, what is this? What is this experience? And it's a kind of freedom there to what is this? As opposed to kind of wallowing it or caught in it or indulging in it or whatever it might be. And so each of these 4 perspectives. And the last one is the foundation of dharmas. And exactly what that means has been one of the great challenges of studying this 4 foundations of mindfulness, because dhammas mean so many different things. But if we look at what the Buddha actually teaches in the 4th foundation, there's a few things that are relevant in terms of looking at emotions. One is that just as in the 2nd, 3rd, and 3rd foundation, there's a kind of division between looking at the things that are suffering or surface-like, and those which have to do with freedom or the depth of our being, the inner life. So that division also exists in the 4th foundation. On one hand, it's looking at the ways in which we get caught, ways in which we cling or crave, the very sources of the movements of the mind that bring suffering and persistent suffering. And then also beginning looking at the movements of the mind or the inner life that lead to freedom. And both in terms of the states of mind that come up, qualities, inner qualities, wholesome qualities, and the insights that bring freedom. And so, in a very simple way, it's to, when we look at emotions, to notice if there is some closing down, contraction, clinging, dimming of the inner light that goes on when we get caught up or these emotions are strong. And in particular, where is that clinging? There can be strong anger which is flowing through us. And the clinging might be our identification with it, our believing it, our resistance to it, our horror at having it, our shame, whatever it might be. That's where the clinging is. But if we look really deep into the anger, we probably find that deep inside, anger only arises because somewhere in there, there is something we were clinging to our preferences, so we were frustrated, clinging to our desires and not having them fulfilled, clinging to not having some experiences, or all kinds of things. So to look, where's the clinging, where's the craving in relationship to the emotions that we have? And so the Buddha talks about the 5 hindrances as examples of this kind that involves something that's contraction, some clinging that hinders or obscures, closes down wisdom and opening. And he also talks about something called the fetters, the ways in which we get knotted up. The fetter, literally, the Pali word literally means a knot. So to get where we get knotted up. So there's an object like the striker, and there's my seeing of it, but then there's a knot that gets formed between the two, in the sense that if I really crave this knot or think this is an important knot, and that my very status as a Dharma teacher is dependent on having a really nice striker and a really clinging to it and preoccupied with it, there's all these mental knots and preoccupations that go on, in a sense, and kind of metaphorically, that exist between my seeing of it and the striker itself, and to loosen and let go of those knots between that, and let there be space and openness. There's just a striker, and there's a seeing of it, and I'm not kind of messing with it and complicating it with all my craving and clinging. So he talks about this, and we get knotted up, and as a way of getting caught. As we get unknotted, there are these unclinging and open up more widely. And as we get a little bit more in the flow of practice, kind of really trusting the present moment, staying present and not drifting off in our thoughts, the whirlpool of thoughts, then we can start noticing that there's more going on in our emotional life than only things which are difficult or afflictive or challenging or hard. Start to notice more the good qualities that are there. And this emphasis in Buddhism to also, don't deny what's difficult, don't kind of pretend it's not there or bypass it, but also don't bypass, avoid, deny that there's also beautiful qualities present, available. And for most people, there's much more inner beauty, much more inner goodness that's available than they avail themselves of, that they allow themselves to feel. Sometimes because we're not brave enough to experience it. Sometimes we feel we don't deserve it. Sometimes it's all kinds of, we're afraid of it. Sometimes we're just preoccupied and don't even know it's there. As we meditate and look at more deeply at the emotions, we don't want to be only fixated on the challenging ones. We want to also begin looking around and start appreciating that in the mindfulness, in the openness, the open awareness of things, this stepping back and seeing an emotion, even a difficult one, in that opening and seeing, there starts to be little hints, and then eventually strong hints and strong presence of really good qualities. And in the fourth foundation, the Buddha is talking about noticing how these, what he calls the 7 factors of awakening, arise. And so these are noticing mindfulness itself, awareness itself as a wholesome quality, noticing investigation, this kind of looking more clearly and precisely what's really going on here, is a really good and enlivening quality. It's not meant to be stressful or closing down to analyze in some close way, but this kind of, it's more like opening the windows to see more clearly, cleaning the glass maybe. And then there's a wholesome kind of energy that can arise, an enlivening kind of feeling of presence and engagement. There can be joy, happiness. There's also is available feeling of calmness, tranquility, settledness that's really can be really sweet. And there can be samadhi, unification, settledness, harmony, being centered on experience. It feels really good. And finally, in some ways, it's hard to believe, but they're really the most sublime and meaningful, valuable, satisfying experiences is the 7th of the factors, which is equanimity. Not an indifference, not an aloofness, but a kind of very profound sweetness and satisfaction of a mind, a heart, which is spacious and holds things, but is not reactive, maintains its peace. So to have the ability to begin opening, there's more going on here, and also appreciating that in this emotional life, that there's also this these good qualities, and to support them by making room for them and seeing them more and including them. Take the time for them. If we live a busy life, busy running around physically or busy running around mentally, there's no room for these 7 factors of awakening to come. And as we recognize them and slow down our life just enough, doesn't have to look slow, but so that we can be present for our experience, then these beautiful qualities can come. And that changes the dynamic, it changes the ecology of our inner emotional life. To have some of these factors of awakening present means that when difficult emotions arise, we can have a very different relationship to them than if we get preoccupied and the busy, contracted mind is just kind of caught up in the drama of the moment. Then the last part of this fourth foundation, and it's there built into the fourth foundation all along, is to notice, to observe how all these things that are we might call emotions are actually inconstant phenomena. They're actually coming and going. And when we're not fixating them or holding on to them through concepts and ideas and stories, everything is flowing, everything is coming and going, appearing and disappearing, arising and passing. There's this current that's moving along. And to see that deeply, and to see that in relationship to our suffering, to see whatever our profound suffering is, rather than fixing it, we see through it. And we see through it by seeing that it's not solid, it's not fixed. There are gaps, there are spaces, it appears in awareness, in reflections, in thought, and ideas, and also it disappears very, very fast, moment by moment in a certain sense. It's flickering through, it's a kaleidoscope of experiences coming and going. To see it arise, see it pass, and see that in that, almost like in the gap when things are no longer there for a moment, there's freedom. And to trust the flow of things, to trust, to be quiet enough and still enough, or open enough to let these emotional life come and go and flow and change and morph. Then we start seeing they're not the whole picture. It's almost like there's gaps and pauses and spaces in our suffering where freedom is, where liberation can be, where there's ease and peace. So, 4 different perspectives for looking at our emotional life. There are many perspectives for looking at our emotional life. I'm not offering this as being the right one, but for people doing mindfulness practice, these 4 foundations of mindfulness are really central to understanding our practice. And so it's interesting to take central aspect of mindfulness and apply them to something like emotions, and maybe to find more freedom, more respect, and more benefit from the wonderful emotions, the wisdom of emotional life as well. And maybe the wisdom, that emotional life that leads us onward to greater and greater freedom. So, thank you very much for this.